What's up, guys? Let's talk British Grand Prix. It is one of my favourite weekends of the year. I'm gutted to say I'm not going to be there for the first time in a long time this year. Partly because I'm no longer working for Sky, as you all know, but also I'm commentating on the Formula E season finale from New York City as well, which is also very exciting, and I'm really grateful to be doing that. It's great. But the British Grand Prix is always one of the highlights of the calendar for me. So let's talk about what the demands of the circuit are, what the challenges it presents for everybody. And by the way, stay tuned till the end if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan or a motor racing fan in general, particularly if you're British, because I have a Lewis Hamilton based spectacular prize from the gpbox.com as ever to give away at the end of this video. So don't go anywhere. Right, Silverstone. Really pleased, first of all, to say that it has a 5-year extension to its contract, or a new contract for 5 years, which is brilliant news, which means we will be sticking around at Silverstone for the foreseeable future. I don't think it necessarily spells the end of the hopes of a London Grand Prix, but I just think that's going to take some time. They've come up against a huge number of challenges with that. And I suspect they will still be working on that in the background as a potential option. But it's so difficult to put a street race on in a city. As Formula E have found out, London actually one of the most tricky of all the places that Formula E goes to put a racetrack in the middle of town somewhere. So Formula One will have their work cut out, but I don't think they're going to give up just yet. But in the meantime, it's great because we've got Silverstone. It's a great track. It's obviously the home race for lots of the teams. Home race for a few of the drivers as well. It's going to be great to see Lando Norris in a McLaren at Silverstone in front of the fans. And I remember when I was racing, working for McLaren, Silverstone was always one of those places where we used to be able to bring our families along. We'd have a section of the grandstand just for us. And it was spectacular. It was brilliant. You support your own team. You know, if I was working, I could bring my kids and my family along, and they could all sit in the grandstand and watch. So it's one of those spectacular places. And to see Lando, British young lad, in a British team at the British track during their resurgence, which is what McLaren are in right now, that should be great. But the circuit is one of those that is incredibly fast. It's incredibly flowing. The drivers all love it. It's largely high speed. It's high speed corners. It's got some long straights. And in terms of who that might favour, it's actually quite tricky to pin that down. I still suspect that Mercedes have the best car at the moment this year. Austria was a blip. We're not going to see those kind of temperatures or that kind of altitude, of course, that we saw in Austria. So I don't imagine their cooling troubles are going to affect them to the same extent here, if at all. But that doesn't necessarily mean I think it'll be an absolute whitewash from Mercedes. I do think they'll be strong, probably favourites, but while Ferrari have been playing this down in the media as them, being, definitely not favourites, whereas they say Mercedes are, this circuit should well suit some of the characteristics of that Ferrari car. It is much more about high-speed cornering, and it's much more about the straights, the long straights, where they have this big speed advantage over Mercedes. And actually, the area that Mercedes are really, really strong, their high point of their car is the slow speed corners, of which there are not very many around the Silverstone track. So I do think it might be close. I still think Mercedes actually will come out on top, but I think the challenge from Ferrari and potentially others could well be closer. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So that should be great. The circuit has just been utterly resurfaced. Again, if you remember, it was just done a couple of years ago, but the lumps and bumps that it was resurfaced to get rid of actually didn't really improve very much. And actually last year it was one of the bumpiest years we've ever had. And you might think, well, just get on with it. And I'm partly inclined to agree with you. I like the fact that we have some circuits that are different and have lumps and bumps to propose a new challenge for drivers and for teams, but they were so bad that it was becoming bordering on dangerous, if you remember last year. So they've resurfaced it again to get rid of the lumps and bumps. That means we'll have a very smooth, or we should have a very smooth surface. It'll be a high grip surface. What they've also done during the process of resurfacing is they've accentuated some of the cambers through the corners, meaning that we should see even faster cornering than we normally do around this place. And therefore, with the new surface and the extra grip and potentially extra camber, we should see the lap record smashed this weekend on a dry weekend with these 2019 cars. I think we'll see lap records being broken very quickly over the course of the weekend, certainly in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton, incidentally, holds that record from last year in qualifying. It's obviously, as I say, really fast circuit. So the compromise between downforce and top speed is obviously the trickiest part of setting your car up here. You need downforce because the sort of the Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel complex, which is so fast, but still relies or still needs a huge amount of directional change, that relies on downforce to stick the car down and stop it sliding off. But too much of that, and of course, and you get onto those straights and you will not achieve your VMAX, your maximum velocity towards the end, and you'll get swallowed up by the faster cars. So it's a real balancing act, as it always is. And then, of course, you've got the slower section right at the end of the lap, which is much more about start, stop, slow speed, change of direction, getting traction out of the final corners onto that straight. So it is a juggling act for engineers, but one they know well around this place, and will have not too much trouble in finding the right balance, I'm sure, as the weekend goes on. Tyres, we've got the hardest 3 compounds in Pirelli's range, simply because of the amount of energy that has to go through the tyres around this track. The lateral forces on the car and therefore on the tyres at such speeds are just phenomenal. So Pirelli have little choice but to bring the hardest compounds. I still think they will be incredibly fast around here. It's what we had last year, incidentally, the hardest compounds. It's much more about lateral limitation. So the cars are limited through their lateral grip, as opposed to some circuits that are longitudinally limited, which is much more about braking and traction events. Silverstone is not one of those circuits. It's about how quickly you can change direction while still maintaining grip, keeping a balance of your car. You don't want the car wobbling around or wallowing around, throwing weight around too drastically through the corners, because it can upset the balance. So you need to find a stable platform, both mechanically and aerodynamically, to get a quick lap round here. So as I say, I think it's going to end up favouring Mercedes, but I do think it will be closer Ferrari. It's not the easiest circuit. You know, this is about positioning your car perfectly on the limit at incredible speeds. And that, as you're about to see in the lap that I did on my Xbox earlier on this morning, is not easy. I will caveat this with my typical racing driver excuse to say, I didn't have a lot of time this morning, so I couldn't do a lot of practice. This was like my second go out the box. It's scrappy, it's a terrible lap, but gives you a great idea of what's involved in this circuit. Take a look. Right, here we go then. DRS wide open on the start-finish straight. Pit lane to the right. Really fast turn into Abbey, turn 1. Flat through turn 2, I've run wide. Stamping on the brakes into Village, getting the car slowed down. Then over to the right-hand side as early as we can, because as we come through the loop here, it's about getting on the throttle as early as possible. As the exit of this corner puts us onto the Wellington Straight and another DRS zone, where we go flat out all the way down towards Brooklands. It approaches fast and it's late on the brakes and late on the turn-in. A late apex, quick squirt of throttle, and we're into Luffield. That seems to go on forever. Got to be patient on the throttle, but when it comes, we get into the fastest part of this racetrack. Flat through Woodcut, which is nothing more than a kink really today, and into Copse Corner. Really, really fast through there. Probably flat in a modern car. Setting ourselves up for Maggots. Flat through there. Beckett's, maybe a little tiny lift. All about positioning and trusting that the aero is going to stick your car to the floor. Out of Chapel and onto another straight. The Hangar Straight with DRS wide open again. Heading now for Stowe with those huge grandstands in the distance. Jumping on the brakes, but then quite early back on the throttle. This is a fast corner. Letting it run wide. Using all of the curve. Pit lane entry to the right hand side there. The last part of the lap. Here we go. Slow last couple of corners. Perhaps might favour Mercedes. Out of club. In front of the grandstands again. And back onto the start-finish straight. What a circuit. I love this place. Yeah, I told you it wasn't the best lap, but there you go. What a circuit! It's so much fun to even drive on the Xbox, let alone in a real car. I can only imagine. I have driven this circuit on the McLaren simulator, and my goodness, it's just unbelievable. The forces on your arms going through that really fast section of Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. The forces, the strength you need to hold onto the car at those speeds is just mind-blowing. And I got out of that simulator, by the way, after doing, I think, 5 laps around Silverstone, and my forearms were destroyed for days. The G-forces on my neck, you have hydraulic linkages hooked up to the crash helmet. My neck was destroyed for days. 5 laps that was. Imagine doing a whole race. Unbelievable. Anyway, that is Silverstone. I think it's going to be a brilliant one. I can't wait for it. But let's get into giving away this prize, because as I said, this week it's a particularly cool prize, especially if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan. Take a look at this. Now, this prize comes from the gpbox.com as ever, and this week it comes from an artist called Maria Holland, who has painted on a canvas a very special painting, perhaps an iconic image of Lewis Hamilton, isn't it? That is his. The picture is called Celebrations, and that is exactly what Lewis does, isn't it? When he steps out of a car or onto his car. I think it's really cool. The black background really makes the image pop out. It's simple, but I think it's really, really nice. It's on a big canvas as well. You can see, ready to hang straight onto your wall. Comes with a certificate of authenticity, and I think you're going to absolutely love it. I mean, I love it. If you're a Lewis Hamilton fan, that is going to be something you definitely want to get your hands on. So, how do you get your hands on it? Well, very, very simple. This week we're going to do it right here on the YouTube platform. All I want you to do is go on to the gpbox.com and onto Maria Holland's page. I'm going to link all of this in the description. I want you to find the piece of artwork that you like best from Maria Holland's page, and then I want you to link it in the description, or in the comments section rather, of this YouTube video. Tell me a little bit about it. Tell me why you like it. Tell me why you love it. And don't forget to, of course, use the hashtag this week of hashtag GPBBRI. GPBBRI. All of that information that I've just completely messed up in saying smoothly and cleanly there is going to be in the description of the video. So if you didn't get it, just have a look in the description. It's all there. Very, very straightforward. But do that. Link it all in the comments. Send me a quick message telling me why you like the picture that you like best. And that's it. And then on Monday, as long as you've used that hashtag and you've done exactly what I've just said, I will go through them all and we'll pick a winner. And that Lewis Hamilton canvas could be on its way to you. So good luck. I hope you enjoy the weekend. It should be a spectacular one. Let me know if you're going. You know, let me know where you're watching from, who you're going with. I'd love to know all your British GP stories. It's a spectacular event. I think it's the best event on the calendar for fans in terms of atmosphere. I can't think of another Grand Prix that generates the type of atmosphere. Japan is always spectacular. It's crazy what the fans get up to there. But the British Grand Prix is full of intensely passionate fans, committed fans who are there, who are willing to camp out in whatever weather. And actually, I think with the British fans, probably the most knowledgeable and the most switched on fans around Formula One. They're not just there to see an event, they are there to see a part of the story that they've been following all year. So let me know if you are one of those. I'd love to hear your story from the weekend as well. And don't forget, enter the competition. Good luck. Have a great one. If you want to follow us on the Formula E race, which will be happening after the Formula One action, because it's coming from New York, so later in the day, you can check me out. I'll be commentating on Saturday and Sunday, because it's a double header on Formula E Radio. You can get that through the Formula E website. I'll tell you where to watch. Thank you very much. Have a wicked one, and I'll speak to you on Monday. Ta-ra.